Okay. Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey,
Okay, all right.
how's it going?
No,
We're doing it. We're here. Here we are. Sorry I missed
yeah,
last week. I've been in it, man.
no one cares.
I'm
It's like
back
you just
from it
told the
though.
teacher.
I was like veering on the abyss, and I came back from it. But we got a good one for you. The wait has been worth it. I promise you. We're going for it. Osama bin Laden. All right.
Hmm.
And I hope you've seen it. If you have, good. If you haven't, I don't know. I don't know if you're missing much, honestly, but the Breaking Point documentary on Netflix, it was good, but there's a lot of stuff that was untouched, obviously. But it was like advertised as the real story almost, like they were going to tell you everything, but
Yeah,
they didn't,
they didn't. They didn't
they
really go
left a
in deep.
lot out, and I kind of want to talk
Yeah,
about the nitty-gritty.
it's that 2 hour drama. That
Mm-hmm,
2 hour
mm-hmm,
couldn't
mm-hmm.
cover the true complexities, and we're gonna miss things here too. But
We
we'll
are,
try to
yeah,
cover
we
what they
are,
didn't
we are.
cover.
Right. But and then we have real quick up top sources, Ghost Wars by Steve Cole, very
Yeah,
good book, 2004, which we used for the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan
yeah.
episode. I'm not going to talk about all that stuff. Just listen to that episode if you're curious. And then The Looming Tower by Lawrence Wright, I believe 2007, republished
Mhm.
2011. This one's also been made into a HBO series, I believe, but I've heard it's bad. So I don't know.
Oh, that's like Homeland. What that was? Oh, that was the.
I think so. I
Oh
don't. I,
yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
Homeland
I
is.
think it's literally called the Looming Tower, but
Oh,
it's like,
there's something called the Limit Tower. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
it's not. My dad told me it's not good, but
Okay.
anyway, here we go. So, Act One, revival. Right. We're not actually going to start with Osama bin Laden himself. We're going to talk about the 1950s. There's this like late 1940s. There's this guy Syed Qutb who
Mhm.
is exiled from Egypt by King Farouk, who was like a British stooge, and he goes to America and he experiences America. He experiences New York, D.C., and then Greeley, Colorado, and he comes back when like shortly after Nasser takes power,
Yeah.
and his writings about America start to circulate around Egypt and then more broadly around the Middle East.
Yeah.
And he describes us as just about as decadent and sex obsessed and indulgent as you can imagine he would. And he says there's one line in there where he says a white man in Europe or America is our number one enemy. And he portrays materialism as the true American God, and argues that like all true Muslims should join Hezbollah or the Party of God. I believe the book is either called Signposts or Milestones. And honestly, I want to read it. If somebody could send me a copy, please do
It's
so. I'll give you my address. I want this thing.
and he went to like America in the 50s when they were like people say we're sex obsessed now, but like
Yeah,
you got to think about like they just had Marilyn Monroe in the 50s just standing over a hot drain, and
I
that
think
was like
so.
sexy
Yeah.
to them, and that's a weird place.
Yeah. What were the number one movies in 1951?
I don't want to know because I
When
know
did
they
Singing in the Rain come out?
I
That's what I'm
don't
wanting to know,
I don't do
Let me see.
I actually do like a lot of LA noir films,
1952.
and like the early 50s, late 40s is like great time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he in it he also writes that he's not necessarily opposed to modern technology, but rather the worship of science. So he kind of leaves the door open to modernization in a uniquely Islamic way.
It's very funny. It's interesting when people do that. When I in the books I read about Saudi Arabia, like they would have like kind of the serious like discussions about like what was haram and what was allowed, and like it would get fuzzy around
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
like oh
Yeah.
is a megaphone allowed. That was not during the time of Muhammad in the Wahhabist sense, right?
Right.
But it does let you get the message out, so then
Yep.
that's all right.
Can you the question is, can you find a hadith that
Yeah,
allows for megaphones, right?
yeah,
October of 1954, there is an attempted assassination of Nasser, and Syed Qutb is implicated in the plot, and he is subsequently jailed. So now this guy's been jailed. Of course, his book's going to take off, right? More people are
yeah,
going to, you just put this guy in prison, you just try to kill the president who just took power in a coup, yeah, I want to read his stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So there are growing tensions between the Muslim Brotherhood and Nasser, and it kind of broadly reflects the question whether Egypt would become more pious or more Islamic or remain secular, as was Nasser's intent.
With the Muslim Brotherhood, that organization from the 20s, that's like that's like apparently like it's conservative Islamic thought, but like with the organizing principles in the 20s of like the communists, of like the fascists, like organizing principles.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's a very
reacting to the British and British
yeah.
hegemony.
But still taking these kind of these organizing principles and using them in a different way. It's interesting.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah.
So now it's either 1957 or I think Lawrence Wright says January of 1958. Osama bin Laden, OBL, UBL, is born to Aliyah Ghanem, who is age 14 years old, and Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden, who is a construction tycoon. The company that he owned is a subsidiary of Aramco. He's very close to the emerging Saudi royal family. He had 54 children from 22 wives, of which Osama bin Laden was the 17th. So your classic 17th son complex, right?
Yeah.
You know how it goes, right?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Just a swath of middle children, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of kids. A lot of kids to have to eat after, to get beat up by.
Yep.
That's a lot. I wonder how many he was beating up after him.
And an internal economy of hand-me-downs,
Yeah. Like what they say about like the bin Laden like family, like why that guy, what the elder bin Laden, the patriarch bin Laden, why he got so popular with like the Saudi royal family is that he would just like actually do the job. Like he would actually, like when he built it, it was well built.
Yeah.
Like it was done good, and they were like, "Fuck!" He didn't cut any corners, which was
no substitute,
which was like apparently like a lot of other people did. So yeah, that's why it was just a good builder, like actually a really good one.
Osama bin Laden was raised in Jeddah, which is the commercial center of Saudi Arabia. I think that's also where Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden was primarily centered, because that would make sense. Abdulaziz dies in 53. His eldest son, King Saud, takes power, and he takes it upon himself to renovate the kingdom, because you need a statement. Once you take power, you need something people are going to remember my reign. Here we go. And King Saud relies heavily on bin Laden, the senior, the elder, Mohammed bin Laden, to build the infrastructure of the state. The Saudi bin Laden group, which is what the company kind of morphs into, to give you an idea of how high esteem they were held. They renovate the Grand Mosque in Mecca, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
You're not going to that's like the highest honor in Saudi Arabia, basically.
It was like that. That's like his bin Laden's dad's, like, or the company's, like, that's like their moment of fruition after all these years of like doing good work, being like, I think they were like super pious, like the patriarch was kind of really pious, everybody liked him, doing all that shit for years, and then you get to, once you work on the Grand Mosque in Mecca, like you don't, that's a credit you live off for years, dog.
Yeah, man, you're done. You can kind of check out of life, You're just like, I've done what I was meant to on this earth. This is my crowning accomplishment, It's a big one. 1960s, there's kind of broader polarization of Afghanistan, because we are going to talk about Afghanistan and the Taliban over the course of this series. Question of whether it would become communist or remain Islamic, and a lot of this is centered on Kabul University. Both sides are building up their cells. August 29th of 1966. After Saudi Arabia covertly supplied Syed Khadib and people in his orbit with money and arms, Khadib gets snitched on and put to death by the Egyptian government, and then he's like subsequently martyred. His name is like now known across the Middle East, and it's like, okay, well, martyrdom has its own thing behind it. One of the guys who was inspired by the martyrdom of Syed Khadib is the Egyptian man who's age 15 at this time, Ayman al-Zawahiri. He decides to form his own cell in Egypt with the goal of eventually establishing a more Islamic nation in place of the current secular government of Egypt.
Yeah, it's a weird time, and not a weird time, but it's the Cold War in Saudi
Mm-hmm,
Arabia,
mm-hmm.
as they kind of think of themselves as the protectors of Islam.
Yeah,
They're a lot of they're like this is the time when they're because like particularly like the more secular governments, Egypt and Syria, they were they're cracking like they were kind of fighting with these more conservative elements. Saudi Arabia is in there like we're the protector of Islam, but also this can work as our like foreign policy strategy, like have a proxy in Egypt. So
yeah,
we're gonna support all of these more conservative, more Islamist movements.
yeah.
It's yeah.
I
So
see.
yeah,
That's kind of that's interesting because it's just what like the US and Russia were doing the same thing on
yeah.
an international scale, and China was doing its own thing regionally. And it's interesting to see Saudi Arabia is also doing its own thing
It's
regionally.
almost the Muslim Brotherhood would be a proxy of a proxy,
Huh.
like in that the Saudi Arabia being the US's kind of proxy power in the
Yeah.
Middle East is then supplying another proxy.
Yeah. Hmm.
Or yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe that's the wrong way to think about it. Too Eurocentric. Maybe think about it as just
Yeah.
different little pieces. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's all good. No, it's cool. 1967. So the year after the death of Syed Qutb, Mohammed bin Laden dies, and Osama, I think he would be what, like 10 years old. He goes to school in Jeddah. Mohammed bin Laden marries Osama's mother, Aliyah, off to Muhammad al Atas, who was just one of the dudes that he worked with. Osama goes to live with them. He becomes like the oldest, quote unquote, third parent to his half siblings. And allegedly, he really liked the show Bonanza. Bonanza was his favorite TV show until he experiences like a religious awakening at like or age 14, like 1972, and
It's a
becomes like very pious. Stops watching Bonanza.
it's a really good show. It's a good show. Just a western, just a repeat western.
Just a
Like
fun time, you know?
just we're gonna fucking just load it up. They're gonna
Uh-huh.
have these problems that we've listed on a whiteboard. There's like 100 problems, and they're just shooting them out episode.
Sounds fun. I haven't seen it. I wish I have had seen it before we
the
record.
particularly in Jeddah because of like all of the because you have these secular governments again in like Egypt and Syria. Those Saudi Arabia is acting as like you can come to Saudi Arabia. So like all of the
Yeah.
more conservative Islamist people in like who were teachers in Egypt and in Syria. I think I talked about in the last episode would
Mhm.
come to the Eastern Jeddah, Mecca,
Yeah.
Medina, all to teach. So he's growing up in a place that's becoming more. It's like getting a steady flow of outsiders who are also
Of people who can't make it, and not people who are like driven from
they're
wherever they
driven,
were, you know. So
particularly because of
they've
their
got
views.
some hot takes, you know.
Yeah.
1974, Osama bin Laden, OBL. He's age 16, 17. He marries his first wife. He joins the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the underground movement goal of establishing, the Muslim Brothers, different organization than the Muslim Brotherhood, underground movement goal of establishing an Islamic State. One of his teachers in high school was Ahmed Badib, who goes on to head the Saudi Arabian GID, was very close to Prince Turki Al Faisal. So there's this early connection here. And then surely with how close Mohammed bin Laden was with the Saudi royal family, just building up their infrastructure, there's no reason why his children wouldn't also kind of covort with the children of the royal family. It's very easy to imagine, you know.
Yeah, it's the
Not a stretch.
Saudi structure, the way the kind of class situation is structured. There's stuff below it, but that upper crust is very small. There's different families, the Saud family, a couple of different like other minor families. And if you're rich and you're like the builders of all that shit, you're gonna be within. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
1976, OBL enters King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah, and many of the professors, again, like you were saying, were people who were driven from anywhere else for, in some cases, being too radical. A lot of guys from the Muslim Brotherhood who had been run out of Egypt or Syria, one of whom I believe was exiled from Palestine was this guy Abdullah Azam, who's like a Palestinian scholar / sheikh, and also
Gunshots,
the co-founder of Hamas.
gunshots. My man, that's not gunshots in support. Don't put me on a list.
All right.
But like they would just talk about like him being like so he was like an actual like fighter who had been on the front lines, who was didn't agree with the rest of the PLO because they weren't Islamist enough for him.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
And like he would just be telling you stories about fighting. It must have been crazy to be educated by somebody like who's like,
Yeah.
I lived the shit. I lived all this shit.
I saw it go down, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. All right. Another guy who is who Osama bin Laden has access to is the lectures of Mohammed Khadib, who is the younger brother of Syed Khadib. He lectured once a week at the university. And there's kind of a growing schism really internally within the Islamic community as to the militancy of Khadib's writings. There's a schism between Khadib and then the primary writer in opposition is Hassan Hudaybi, who's much more moderate and much more tolerant. And he published his own book called Preachers Not Judges to kind of counter Khadib's writing and be like, yo, Muhammad was talking about an ideological battle here. We need to debate. We need to discuss. You know, he's got different ideas that aren't as like hardcore.
Yeah, I think when people talk about religion, but particularly they talk about Islam a lot, they like do not acknowledge that there are like these schisms that are happening within the religion themselves. It's like crazy. Exactly. Like a lot of debates are happening.
Yeah. In every community.
Yeah.
And OBL himself was actually Lawrence Wright says that he was initially drawn to Hudaybi, and something changes his mind along the way. November 20th of 1979, there's the assault at the Grand Mosque at Mecca by Juhayman al-Utaibi. Yeah. And members of the bin Laden family actually helped put it down with the help of French officers under this guy, Count Claude Alexandre de Marenche. They like gas the people inside with non-lethal gas in order to put this down. But it's like, what the fuck are the French just pop up? And it's like, oh, okay.
No. The French don't just pop up. Let me make sure of what I'm talking about before. Give me 1 second on this.
Okay.
Yeah, so that guy is not just any French intelligence officer. That's the French like spy master. Like, yeah, he's the guy who creates the Safari Club.
Yeah.
Like, which is like So like
just a boy living his Hemingway best life, you know, right?
By this time, that dude has a crazy like mustache. Like, that dude's the been fucking up shit all over the world for years by this point.
Claude Alexandre de Marenche. Let me see this guy. Does he have badass facial hair? No, he doesn't. He doesn't have that badass face. He looks kind of like Dulles, only with bogged down eyebrows.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. I think I referenced him in like the one of the episodes of the Saudi royal family. But it's just like, yeah, dude. There's just these spy masters behind that are like involved in weaving through everything. Oh, I just popped up.
Yeah. He looks like a villain in a Charlie Chaplin movie or something. Or like a alternate version of Charlie Chaplin. It looks funny.
It's just all these weird
or like the Penguin or something.
Yeah, no, he has the weird graying on the side.
Yeah, the wings.
Yeah, Doug.
This gets us into Act 2, Test of Faith. So December of 1979, the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan begins. We've already done a whole episode on it. If you want that, go back, listen to that one.
Yeah.
1980, OBL graduates from the university, and the Saudi bin Laden group, it has an office in Egypt because, again, he still does have connections and has been working for his father's company throughout this time. Why wouldn't he? You know, they've got an office in Egypt, and it's known as a funnel for Muslims who wanted to fight in Afghanistan, and OBL is paying their way. Like, a lot of these guys kind of stop through his apartment at Jeddah. So there's some accounts say that OBL went straight there, and I think that's what he told people because it makes it seem more like, oh, I've been there since day one. But I don't think so. I don't think he got there till like 84.
Yeah, he doesn't. He like
But he
there's a
was
time.
still working on it, you know.
I thought like I mean I misread. Yeah, he was like just a facilitator for a good amount of time, and then he
Yep.
started to feel bad. He
Yeah.
started to feel like shit
Yeah.
because he was and then he goes to actually be in Afghanistan. It's like it's you were talking about it earlier, like him being like this pious kid. Like he's like a very kind of a more westernized kid. Then he became a pious
Yep.
guy. And I remember like they talked about him in college being like he was the most pious of the pious friends. Like he
Yeah.
was having the pious conversations all
Yeah.
the fucking time. And then now he facilitates and then goes to Afghanistan after a while.
They mentioned that in the documentary, I think it's Osama's hard drive, which is like kind of covers the last 10 years of his life and what he was doing in Abbottabad. And they kind of posit that was like that became a mask. The piety became a mask for insanity. But I mean, we'll get into it.
Yeah, I guess. All right, big dog.
And so he starts to feel bad. The Saudi royal family and his mother both don't want him to go initially. His mother, obviously, because she's worried about him, but Saudi royal family in particular, because it might, if he's like discovered, if he's found out, it's going to tip the Saudi Arabia's hand as to where their loyalties lie in this fight. And it's against the Soviets.
Again, Inside the Kingdom by Robert Lacey. I read on the Saudi royal family. If you want to learn how the Saudis, how much they would go through to facilitate, how much they were doing to send money to Afghanistan, but like through two intermediaries.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly how it's set up, but it's an interesting little y'all didn't want people to know, but it wasn't that much.
It wasn't that much of a secret. You know, you guys are still, and OBL is one of those intermediaries.
Yeah.
September of 1984, Lawrence Wright tells it that while on the Hajj, both OBL and Abdullah Azam, who since the war started became like an international itinerant preacher, and he would like help inspire young men to go fight in the war. He would speak of the miracles happening in Afghanistan, and this is one of the front lines of God's last battles on earth, and you need to go get in on the action, right? While on the Hajj, they agree to play a more substantial role in the war, like training and equipping and like underwriting the expenses of the Mujahideen. They get back to Pakistan and co-found the Afghan Services Bureau, or Maktab al-Khidamat, in the university town of Peshawar. And a lot is going on in the university town of Peshawar. Peshawar is like right on the border of Afghanistan being west of Pakistan. And this is, a lot of action is always taking place on college campuses. This is where like a lot of debates and you can meet a lot of people here because there are professors and diplomats who are coming to speak at events because it's a university,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of traffic in Peshawar at this time.
Yeah.
He's funneling cash to the Mujahideen, some of it from Prince Turki, Ahmed Badib, and the GID, and he would know some ISI guys, which is Pakistan's intelligence service as well, because they were also in Peshawar.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
1980.
I'm pretty sure the Saudi Arabian government and the ISI were like directly everybody directly cooperating to fuck over the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan.
Yeah. 1984, the specific role he played initially after he gets he's in Pakistan, he's kind of popping over the border in Afghanistan, into Afghanistan. His initial forays, 1984 to 1986, Turki, Badib, and Osama bin Laden are meeting with the ISI and other top dogs again, and they're using Osama's construction connections through his father's company, his bulldozers and his equipment and whatnot, to build roads and tunnels and caches inside of the mountains. Because one of the strategies that the Soviets would do is they knew that if they attacked places closer to the border of Pakistan, that the refugee flow into Pakistan would disrupt their supply lines. And so they're using Osama's equipment in order to rebuild these supply lines and push back the Russians, the Soviets.
This is also a war that features heavily helicopters.
Yeah.
So, and it's not on the Taliban side. Let's put
Yeah. Well, that changes.
Oh, well, I mean, they get the rockets, right? I
Yeah,
don't.
they get the Stingers.
Yeah, they get the Stingers.
But not till 86, which we'll
Yeah,
talk about. Or we talked about in the other episode. Never mind.
yeah,
February 1st of 1986. This is the birth of the CIA's counterterrorism center. Two of the guys associated with it is Dewey Claridge and William Casey. And initially they focused primarily on secular leftist groups like the Basque separatists, the IRA, and the PLO. And they just get like a little blip on their radar, which is the Islamic Salvation Foundation in Peshawar. Osama's been spreading money around the area, and there are initial discussions. You know, he's got money, he's got connections, he's building up training camps. Maybe we help him out.
Yeah.
Maybe we throw him some money. Maybe we throw him some equipment. Maybe we see what he can do. You know, he's got construction equipment as well. That people seem to be using it. That can't hurt, right?
Yeah, my man. If there, if in terms of like the general arc of people that they sent money to, like the CIA sent money to, he was not somebody they were concerned about at all. They were going to send him. If they wanted to send him money,
they would have. Yeah,
they had no qualms about it.
No. July of 1986, Milton Bearden, who is the guy from the Breaking Point documentary, he's like the CIA expert they call in. I got some problems. First of all, don't trust the guy who worked for the CIA. You know, just as kind of a general rule.
It's a hard.
They're liars. Like, you know,
it's a hard thing to like. They do be smooth having them on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News if you watch Fox News, and you just be looking at and they just tell you things and like, wasn't your whole job to lie to me, dog?
Isn't that what you got paid big dollars to do? Isn't that what you got paid my tax dollars to do? Is lie to me? What do you? Didn't you on the news? What do you?
Didn't you like fuck up Zimbabwe once? Just like fucked up, like just with lies.
I can put you in like a room with some unsavory dudes, and I don't know. Nah,
man. Yeah, they finessable with the truth.
I mean, you know, he's telling you about like two iterations down from the truth, but it's
FBI.
Been,
all right. Well, let's keep
anyway. Milton Bearden, July 1986, he becomes the CIA station chief at Islamabad, which is the capital of Pakistan. Around the same time, Osama relocates his family to Saudi Arabia, to Peshawar, which is, to give you an idea, Islamabad is about a 2 to 3 hour drive away from Peshawar. And he's living at University Town, which again, University Town is close to aid groups, charities, diplomats, Afghan exiles, and Arab preachers all lived there. It's not impossible to imagine a meeting between Milton Bearden and Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
They're close enough. They are already talking about maybe giving him money. I think we should ask him, but you know,
I don't know.
That's on you.
I don't think he. All right, let's move on.
This is also where Osama bin Laden in University Town meets Ayman al-Zawahiri, who he was trained as a doctor, and he again from Egypt. He had gone to Afghanistan and was working as a doctor in '79. Basically, as soon as the call was administered, he answered the bugle. You know.
Yeah.
There are a lot of guys in the fighting on the war who are also like on Osama bin Laden's payroll, and that's kind of through the Afghan Services Bureau. And so they kind of, you know, he's a guy who pays their bills or their living expenses. So they kind of like his presence is enhanced, you know.
Saying through the first amount of that, like through 84, 86 is where it starts getting weird. He starts actually being on the battlefield. But like for the first, he always has this role as this like just a facilitator because he has connections.
He's the money man.
And then once he has the connections and actually done the thing, then he's the guys that done all this. He's done all this shit, and he just kind of it rolls downhill. Like you're a stone gathering moss. And this time the moss is clout as a jihadi or
as a jihadi. That's right. You're the guy they all defer to.
Yeah.
And he starts to so he was doing that facilitator role from Jeddah,
Yeah.
and then from Peshawar, and then like I can't place exactly when he starts foraying into the war, the other side, into the Afghanistan, across the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. He focuses on the Parrot's Beak, which if you look at Afghanistan on a map, just Google Maps it, and look at Pakistan, there's like a little inlet. There's like a little kind of crag in that border that divots into Afghanistan, if from Pakistan's perspective.
Yeah.
That's where it is. That's where Osama bin Laden is around. He wants to build up a hospital at Jaji, which is right on the Afghan side of the Parrot's Beak, with an accompanying training camp that he would lead. And his base is either called Al Ansar, which is the name of the first followers of the Prophet Muhammad, or Masada, which is Lion's Den. And it's man-made caves and tunnels and everything where him and the dudes on his payroll and presumably Zawahiri and Azam are posted up with them, and they're again playing that facilitator role, but now they're in Afghanistan. But things are much worse elsewhere. Like I read in one of these that the Mujahideen don't entirely consider the Pakistani volunteers jihadists, because they're not on the front lines. They're still hugging the Pakistan border, where it's like, where this war is, like it's it's so much broader than just Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
It's way worse elsewhere. That reputation starts to change around April 17th of 1987. Osama leads an attack on an Afghan government outpost at Khost, which is south of Jaji, but still kind of near it. Soviets pursue, and there are airstrikes at Jaji, followed by like Spetsnaz forces. And Osama and his band of about like 50 jihadists are kind of holding out there. They're forced to abandon the Lion's Den, but ultimately the Spetsnaz, these special elite Russian Marines, retreat. And this is one of the things that now transforms Osama. He starts getting this growing reputation as like, oh, this is a warrior, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And can you leave that alone? Yeah. Can you stop doing that?
You got the rush, man. It feels good, doesn't it?
No, yeah. I remember this. There's Restrepo, which is like there's a documentary about like Afghanistan. I think this is the one, or Camp Restrepo. I just remember this kid, like he was like at this Afghanistan U.S. Army soldier at this Afghanistan like outpost in the middle of nowhere in the Korengal Valley, and he was just like, "Yeah, man, I get excited when I hear the shooting." And I get excited during like the shooting and stuff. And I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to like have another thrill like this in my life. I don't know if I can they said something like that. I was like, that's weird. But Osama, I feel like he has a similar thing that he
feels good, man. I don't know. It's like a drug.
I can't. It's adrenaline. It is a drug. Right? It's like doing a shit ton of adrenaline, escaping death again and again and again and again.
Nothing feels good anymore. The only thing that feels good is killing.
Yeah.
You ever know what it's like to watch the
Okay, you can't do that with that face, big dog. You can't do that with that face.
May of 1988, there's a Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan. Mujahideen leaders start preparing for I think it doesn't occur till like February of 1989, like the final withdrawal, but this is May of 1988 is when it begins. Mujahideen leaders start preparing for war against each other naturally. And as a little like backstory, from 1986, 1984, really beginning, Abdullah Azam again taught Osama in high school and had since fell into his orbit. They had reached some opposite conclusions. In like 1986, there started to be a schism. There were all these debates going on around university town, like who is the real enemy of jihad and who is the real enemy of Islam. And so they kind of start to have a falling out because they have different ideas. And then throughout this, there Ayman al-Zawahiri, there are like other Egyptians in Osama's orbit who kind of defer to Zawahiri. So there's a different clique, and both Abdullah Azam and Zawahiri have different designs on Osama bin Laden. Like the first wants to use the Afghan camps to train Hamas members and then take Hamas back to Palestine to fight the PLO, while Zawahiri wants to launch a coup in Egypt ASAP and install an Islamic government, which could be then the center of a potential caliphate. So they're kind of both, and Osama's the guy with the money, right?
Yeah.
And so they both have different ideas of what they want to do with Osama. What way can we sway him, right? But there are at odds. And then there's also like Zawahiri starts saying that Azam is like a CIA stooge. It starts like spreading those rumors that one of the charities or foundations that Azam was involved in was like a CIA front. And so there's rumors going back and forth, conflict.
Yeah, it's interesting that like also it's like you think about somebody getting out of a war, right? And they're like about to be done with the war, and then it's always like there's like the last episode of Band of Brothers. It's like, all right, what are we gonna do after this war now? And some people are like, I got this opportunity, I got this thing. But for Osama bin Laden, it was just a bunch of opportunities. Like, do you want to fucking be a jihadi over here? Or do you want to be a jihadi and then search that glory and that sense of thrill that you're after?
Yeah.
Do you want that? Or do you want to go back and work at your father's, work at the
you
family?
Want to work for your father's construction company.
Yeah.
Or you want to make something of yourself, Okay.
Do you want to be a jihadi in a holy war on the side of God, leading the warriors of God? Or do you want to build model homes outside of Riyadh?
You want to build model homes that look suspiciously like suburban homes in like Katy.
Yeah.
It looks suspiciously like the American suburban sprawl, that are specifically this style that you hate,
Yeah.
That gets us into Act 3, spreading his wings.
Oh man.
August 20th.
I'm gonna end up in a room with some FBI agents, and they're just be like, "What did you mean by spreading his wings?
What do you mean by spreading?
What do you mean by that?
He gets on a plane, right?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?" And I'm just like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Like, I don't. They're like, what?
The war transforms him, and he decides what he wants to do with his life, and he pursues his ambition.
And then there's just like the other FBI agent is like 296 people died. 2,996 people died on 9/11. He just keeps repeating it. Keeps repeating it. Why you just are like, it's a podcast. 2,996.
You see what I was trying to do? I'm trying to like do out the acts, but use like religious imagery and everything. That way, it's people. Like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's what that. I have nightmares about getting interviewed by the FBI all the time. Sorry.
It would be a hell of a rubber stamp, right?
Yeah.
So August 20th of 1988, Al Qaeda is formed, and Abdullah Azzam, he's kind of the guy who is credited with like coming up with the name, because his line of thinking went like, the reason Al Qaeda roughly translates into solid base. Is the idea that this is the core, this is the brotherhood from which will sprout this tree of a caliphate. This is the base from which we will build a pure and holy Islamic society. So, and they kind of do so. They already have like the existing bureaucracy or network through the Afghan Services Bureau, and they kind of like fold that in with their other contacts and form Al Qaeda. Same month, August 1988, there's a U.S. Special Envoy recently appointed, relatively, Edmund McWilliams, who is surveying the situation. He gets the impression he's just going out and he's talking to people. He's figuring out what the hell is going on. He gets the impression Hekmatyar is backed by Pakistan and consolidating power. He's crushing dissenters and taking out his rivals, and the news is bad. And meanwhile, the CIA is increasing cash payments to Masood. Osama bin Laden's territory is south of the Parrot's Beak. Hekmatyar is based in Peshawar, and Abdullah Azzam initially backs Hekmatyar. And then he's trying to broker a truce under those auspices. He walks it's him and one other guy, and they walk like 8 days through the mountains.
Jesus.
Yeah. And they visit Masood. And then Azzam very publicly switches to Masood. Like during their meeting, he very complimentary, like compares Masood to Napoleon. And then he starts, again, very public nature of his switching. He travels around Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and in one of them, he's credited to have said, like, I have seen the future of Afghan jihad, and it is Masood. So it is no secret that he's like, no, Masood, not Hekmatyar, Masood. Fall of 1989, Osama bin Laden gets back to Saudi Arabia. He's preaching against the U.S. initially, and initially he calls at this stage relatively minor, just like a boycott, right?
Yeah.
But backing up a little bit, July of 1989 in North Afghanistan, Hekmatyar's forces ambush a group of Masood's commandos. They kill like 30 of his officers, including 8 of Masood's top guys. And he launches a counter assault, and this kind of like broadens the war, reopened. It turns us into a more bloody civil war. And Osama bin Laden, there's polarization between the two different camps. Osama bin Laden gravitates toward Hekmatyar. Then on the 29th of November of 1989, a car bomb kills Azam, and everyone is under suspicion. Like he's a co-founder of Hamas, so he's kind of upset. Israel, Hekmatyar didn't like his flip to Masood, and I believe had already tried to assassinate him, but failed. But then again, Zawahiri had been stoking rumors that he was a CIA stooge, and they were at odds against each other inside of Osama's clique and inside of Al-Qaeda. So it could have been Zawahiri trying to take out a rival. I tend to think it was either Hekmatyar or Zawahiri.
Yeah, it could have been. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of suspects.
Yeah, for sure. You made too many enemies.
A lot of people with the means and the motive.
Yeah. If you were going to be with Masood, you could have flipped to Masood, and maybe things would have worked out much different. I actually don't know. I don't know. Spring of 1990, there are CIA agents in Afghanistan. They get whiff that the ISI was pursuing its own plan of installing Hekmatyar as the new leader of Afghanistan. And Osama bin Laden had been helping fund his rise and rule at this point. He's committed millions of dollars to Hekmatyar and to Afghanistan generally, and is working with the ISI. There's also talks, and this is kind of crazy to me because it's like, what was going on inside of Pakistan at this time? There's talk between the ISI and Osama if he would provide money to bribe money to help foster a vote of no confidence against the then president of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto. There are designs. Okay.
Yeah, the ISI is its own thing in Pakistan. Like that.
Yeah. And then shortly after this, August of 1990, Saddam Hussein's force move into Kuwait. U.S. is worried about him taking over the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, which again is like very oil rich. Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney and General Norman Schwarzkopf meet with King Fahd. King Fahd tells him, please help us out. Field troops ASAP. We need to drive this madman out of here. And so you have the commencement of the First Persian Gulf. Is it the first or the second? Persian Gulf, right?
First. Persian
First.
Gulf.
Okay. October of 1990, in order to make money, in order to field those troops, you got to find it from the budget somewhere, right? So congressional funding for Afghani ventures are slashed by 60%, and about $288 million there. The Pressler Amendment ends U.S. aid to Pakistan because I think they like announced that they're like, oh yeah, we have nukes now too. So we just attained nuclear capabilities, and the Pressler be like, okay, well you're sanctioned. You can't. We didn't say this was okay,
Yeah.
And so then they take that money and direct it towards Saudi Arabia and the Persian Gulf, fielding troops in the Persian Gulf. So the same month, the CIA station, I think at Islamabad, reports a bunch of trucks carrying Pakistani rockets across the border at Peshawar, heading toward Kabul to help Hekmatyar. So it's interesting to see that it's like, okay, now that the U.S. has pulled all of its money and resources out of Afghanistan, we'll go ahead and help our guy Hekmatyar take Kabul while that door has been opened up. So let's do it.
Was that the whole Pakistan, or is that like just the CIA? Like, is that like the ISI who's like behind those rockets, or is it just?
Man, I think I don't know. I don't know enough about the internal politics of Pakistan. I know like Benazir Bhutto, she's the daughter of not Zulfikar.
I know
there was President Bhutto in like the 70s.
Yeah.
Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, I think, was his name, and she's like also the first woman president. So similar with Indira, that there's big beef there, and I know that the ISI later on is just off doing its own doing its own thing, pursuing its own agenda. And so I would not doubt if this was just like ISI just kind of being like, yeah, you know, we still have a shit ton of money and guns. So we don't really care what you say, you know. We don't need you to approve this, you understand? Late 1990, Osama moves his business back to Jeddah, basically soon after Hussein invades. Moves business back to Jeddah, assembles a coalition of Saudi and Yemeni volunteers to fight the socialist/Marxist government in Yemen. And they're almost immediately apprehended by the Yemeni government upon crossing the border, who then complain to Saudi Arabia. And Osama is summoned to meet with Interior Minister Prince Naif. And I think he meets with Turki Al Faisal as well, and other members of the Saudi royal family. And while he meets with them, he's pushing for a meeting with King Fahd. He's boasting he has 60,000 men at his disposal. And he goes as far as to say, like, I don't need weapons. I just need sanction, you know? And he's decrying the joint U.S.-Saudi operation against Iraq and Saddam. He wants to fight both in Yemen and in Kuwait. And Prince Turki notes, like, during this period that, like, Osama bin Laden has changed. He has got a big head. He goes as far as to tell him there are no caves in Kuwait. They're outnumbered. The Iraqi army is approximately 1 million guys. We don't have that. You're a madman. You're going to get wiped out.
Yeah. It's like, it's the Mujahideen. Like, it's basically what he has. They're kind of a Mujahideen-like force, and that's on like the Yemeni border that he wants to bring to fight the fucking tanks that fucking Iraq has. These battle-hardened, also fresh off like the Iraq-Iran war, which is crazy enough in itself. Veteran ass troops. And he wants to send his jihadis to do like guerrilla tactics
in a place where there are no caves, apparently. Like,
in a place where he's never fight, and it's not the terrain.
You don't know the topography.
It's to them it sounded, he had like a couple meetings with a couple of different people. Because he is a part of that upper royalty crust. They let him in, and they were like, I remember them saying that they were nice. They were like, maybe, you know, not, because he's still a somebody. But they were like, no, don't.
Don't come here with this crazy shit, dude. Like, what do you real politic? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Real politic this out, big dog.
Once he walked out the room, they were like, you know this fucking guy?
Who the fuck like, Isn't this Mohammed bin Laden's kid? What is he doing? You know, who's this guy again?
What the fuck is he? Yeah, because they're all like, all the Saudi like upper crust royalty people are the upper crust of the Saudi people who have those positions are like, they're all like, a lot of them are Western educated. And they do a lot of kowtowing to like at this time to like the more Wahhabist fundamentalist strain. Specifically the religious like hierarchy. But like they're all like very kind of westernized themselves. Like, and they're just like, I don't really believe the Mujahideen can take on the Iraqi army. Why don't we just send the US? I know they can blow this shit up immediately. Like the fucking
but now you've got the Crusaders in the Holy Land.
No, but they got their shit from the blind sheikh. So they should be good they're sanctioned
by the blind sheikh. He's ready. They're ready to go, and it's like, no, but the Crusaders have tanks. They're pretty good, you know.
They got it from bin Baz, and bin Baz was like, how will they get their tanks here across the flat earth? The flat earth that is flat. Sheikh bin Baz. Come on, baby.
You see, as soon as you sail far enough to the east, you're just gonna fall into the massive abyss of space. You know, and it's sort of like, it's the gravity that holds both sides of the discs together. But everybody knows, if you sail too far in either direction, you fall into the horrifying nebula. It's like that final scene in Space Odyssey. You know, where the dude's just kind of like floating through psychedelic space, and he's experiencing the horror of time and space condensed all at once, and then he's rebirthed as like a cosmic space alien. That's what happens if the U.S. were to send its tanks to the Persian Gulf. I don't know if you know.
You lost me in the middle of that, big dog. I was so confused.
I'm happy I was able to pull that off.
Like, what, big dog? I was like, what, big dog? All right.
It's a good movie. I just recently watched it the other day. It's pretty sweet. I'm catching up on all the films I gotta watch. All right, that's what I'm doing. By March of 1991, Hussein's forces are in retreat. There's a bunch of like Soviet-made T-55 and T-72 tanks that are recovered by like a joint CIA, Saudi Arabian, U.S. military operation. They're like, hey, we got these cool Soviet tanks. These are pretty sweet, huh? Get a picture of me in it. Do I look good, honey?
Yeah.
May of 1991, rounding out, the letter of demands is given to King Fahd, I believe from like the Ulema or Ulama, which is like the highest religious caste. And they're given to King Fahd. They're like quasi-democratic reforms, also coupled with some elements of Islamic fundamentalism. They call for like equal distribution of public wealth. So good thing. And then the supremacy of Islamic law, funding for Islamic institutions, religious control of the media, and a consultative body to the royal family, presumably from, I guess you would consider them the legislative class, right?
Yeah.
It's like a check to make sure that the royal, they want it's similar to France, I guess, or similar to France during the revolution, that they want kind of a body around the monarchy to advise them, but also to keep them in check. And they want an entry into this,
now I'm
into
not
the upper crust.
I think that's the Al Shura is what it's called. And what the thing that is like the thing that comes after this, that is like the legislative body. I'm pretty sure that they don't have like any, like they can make laws without their say, but I'm pretty sure it's still top down as far as because and it's the Juhaman kind of attack on the Grand Mosque. Some of the stuff that he was talking about was like redistributive. It's a lot of the stuff. If this is the Shia uprisings that happened in '79, a lot of the stuff that's happening, and it always has a kind of a piece about, hey, there needs to be more redistribution of the wealth. But then also they'll have like their own. That's always a component, and then there's also whatever whether it's
Saudi Arabia is majority Sunni.
Yes, majority Sunni.
Okay.
The Shia.
So I didn't know that component. There's like a minority religious group is the Utabi uprising. I didn't know that.
No, it's not. It's not. The Utabi uprising is not part of the Shia. I'm just naming there are different uprisings. Like there's also a Shia uprising that happened in '79.
Okay,
that's particularly worrying because of Iran in '79.
I see.
Saudi government. Yeah, but there's
I see how that could be really bad or look really bad to Saudi Arabia.
Being like that year, that the same year.
And now Shia just came to power in Iran, and now we also have a Shia uprising in '79. Oh shit, there were all these different things going on, but they also always had like this, like, hey, this is not a good distribution of the wealth in this country. Is also something that was always said. Interesting. So there's a round of arrests naturally
in the couple of things that I've looked at. Right? Let me make sure.
With the round of arrests, the Saudi royal family is trying to make it seem not quite like a super brutal crackdown, right? Like they're meeting with prominent people arrested and kind of negotiating. Gary Schroen, who is a CIA agent who put in a lot of footwork in Pakistan and Afghanistan. He's the guy, I believe, who initially distributed the Stinger missiles in 1986. Schroen in 1981 pops up in Riyadh. He's talking to Prince Turki Al Faisal, warning about radicalism. And then from here, Osama bin Laden is basically kind of pressured by the Saudi royal family at this point. He's told subsequently that he has to leave the country. And
there was a moment where I think he says something specifically against the like Saudi Arabian, like the hierarchy, like against the Saudi royal family. And that's like part of the reason where they're like, no, now you're just speaking against us. You're not talking about the U.S. You're not talking about any Satan everywhere else. You're
Yep.
talking about the far Satan being the U.S. and the near Satan
Mhm.
being the U.S. The Saudi royal family,
Yeah.
and that's the point where they're like, you gotta go, fam.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like the reason they kicked him out was because the U.S. told them to. They had already been like,
Yeah.
this guy kind of is pissing us off lately.
Yeah.
So fuck
Yeah.
you. You got to get out of here, dude.
Yeah.
You're drunk.
Go home.
1992, Osama bin Laden relocates him and his family, and Al Qaeda to Sudan. One of the properties he has is called Soba Farm, and he devotes himself initially primarily to agriculture. He's got another, I don't know if Soba Farm is north of Khartoum or if he had another farm north of Khartoum. He had a lot of land in Sudan. Let me put it that way. Even as a company, and just a lot of connections and levers that he can pull. He has a company that imports machinery from Eastern Europe and Russia called Al Qadarat. So even like the Russia trade, the hot 90s Russia trade that's going on, the looting of the state.
Yeah.
Osama bin Laden gets a taste of that,
I just want a little taste.
Little taste of that, you got some Soviet era tractors you're trying to jump on. Nobody wants these anymore. I'll take them, man. I got this farm I'm trying to pop off, and he's still involved with Al Hijira, which is his construction company. And then if anyone wants to look into it, Wadi El Akik is the holding company, Akik with Q's. And there's like very eccentric investments as well going on. Like he was not framed as a great business person. He would just kind of float from thing to thing. Like at one point he gets involved. He wants to buy like a bunch of soap making equipment.
Yeah.
Pop into artisanal soaps.
Yeah, dog.
Get that off. Leather tanning, because his big booming leather tanning business in the 90s. At one point, he's like, one of his connections tells him that they have a connection for a bunch of Azerbaijani bikes, and so he just buys a bunch of, which people don't ride bikes in the Sudan, so he's just like, I'm in the bike game now.
That sounds like you got
I'm all
scammed,
about bicycles.
That sounds like somebody was like, yeah, I'm gonna get you these Azerbaijani bikes. It's like, I got an Azerbaijani bike I'm gonna sell you. But once I sell you that, I really want you to invest in this beachfront condo in Iowa. Yeah, I really like a lot of those vibes.
No, maybe it's a MLM. Like, listen, maybe it's a package deal. Like I have spent so much time making these artisanal soaps that will you buy in at the low price. Your buy-in for my inventory of soaps is $10,000. Included with that, Azerbaijani bicycles, right? You get a free Azerbaijani built bicycle with your $10,000 buy-in to my soap emporium. All right.
Just watch.
By the way, my name is Osama bin Laden, right?
Just watch. There's like there's somebody on here is like, these fucking idiots don't know Azerbaijani bikes are some of the best bikes in the entire world.
Wait, what? You're telling me he got Azerbaijani bikes? Holy shit. I didn't know anything about this, right?
They don't even
know what
make
those trade at? Oh my God. The value those things hold over years, right?
Azerbaijan invented bikes.
Then you got some super cool hipster, and it's like, I really prefer the Georgian bikes. I really think the Georgian bikes are better than the Azerbaijani bikes. Get a good reputation, but they don't really hold up well on the roads. If you get a good bike lane and a good Georgian bicycle, you'll be going for miles, man.
And on that note,
you want to buy some artisanal soaps, man? I gotta offload all these artisanal soaps I bought from Osama bin Laden.
And on that note, that's been the first part, the first episode of our little series on Osama bin Laden. Thank you, Henry, for doing the research. I appreciate you. Guys, thank you for listening. Come back next time for that spicy little part 2. You know where you can find us on our social medias. You know that Joshua B. Stokes, Henry, what's your social media?
I'm just Henry Price, man. I'm just here.
Is your name Henry E. Price now?
Yeah.
Did you change it to mimic? Did you mimic? I just now realizing you're mimicking my whole thing.
Yeah, I did. I took it.
You son of a bitch. All right. All right. You guys can find me at Eighth Wonder on Sunday, Back of the Bus on Thursday. We'll see you. We love you. We'll see you next time, okay? You know what I mean? See ya. Peace.